On my first listen, as soon as it was over, I was like, oh my God, this very well might be my album of the year. What's up, my fellow headbangers? I'm Courtney, aka the Versatile Virgo, and welcome to my YouTube channel. I run a metal lifestyle blog, theversatilevirgo.com, which focuses on the best things in life: music, food, and fashion. This year has flown by, and I feel like that's usually something we always say at the end of the year, just in general. Can you believe it? How fast the year's gone? But 2021 in particular has been quite hectic. The one thing that always keeps me pushing through, though, is in fact heavy music, especially if we're talking metal. And man, were there some amazingly heavy albums released this year. I'm not gonna lie, I thought I had my album of the year list pretty solidified, and then there were these releases that came in very late in the year that blew my mind and blew up my album of the year list, quite frankly. And I think a lot of the intense release schedule with so many big releases coming out had a lot to do with the events of 2020 and things needing to be pushed back. So when it came to choosing my top metal albums of 2021, there was a lot of things to consider. Gojira, Spiritbox, Exodus, just to name a few. And I mean, the list just goes on and on. But ultimately for me, my top metal albums of 2021 list came down to those albums that kind of caught me by surprise, if you will. And what I mean by that is, even if it was a very highly anticipated release, those releases still blew those highly anticipated expectations out of the water, in my opinion. So in today's video, I'll be discussing my top 5 metal albums of 2021 with you, but make sure to watch this video until the end because I'll actually be giving you my full top 10 list. I'm just only going to be elaborating on the top 5. I hate super long videos, so I'm not gonna do that to you. Number 5 is Culling Culture by Vex. When it comes to amazing debut albums in 2021, look no further than Culling Culture. 2 songs from this album were actually voted by you guys as some of the best songs of 2021, and it's easy to see why. Speaking of which, I've linked the best songs of 2021 list that's fan voted in the description below, along with my top 5 Underground Metal EPs, so you can check that out too and see what all made those lists. Culling Culture by Vex is brutal and viciously aggressive, while mixing in those soaring melodies that just make my heart swoon. And no matter where the record goes, there's this very raw emotion present throughout the entire record that I think makes it just hit that much harder. Number 4 is Kill Grid by Enforce. So this is one of those albums that kind of grabs you by the throat and doesn't let go. And I mean that in the best way possible. Enforce Kill Grid is a speedy and explosive beast of an album that is so spicy that you should probably be careful banging your head to this one if you're a newbie, because it just bangs that hard. If you're someone like myself that loves thrash, don't sleep on this album. I actually have this album on vinyl, but I didn't pre-order it. I waited until the album was actually released, listened to it, and then as soon as I listened to it, I was like, oh my God, I have to have this on vinyl. So I ordered it on vinyl. Number 3 on my top metal albums of 2021 list is Blood Moon 1 by Converge and Chelsea Wolfe. So remember at the beginning of this video when I talked about albums released later in the year that completely blew up my album of the year list because they were just that amazing? That's Blood Moon 1 by Converge and Chelsea Wolfe. First of all, this album has a little bit of everything on it. It has songs that are very dark and heavy, like the opener, Blood Moon, and then it has songs that are kind of sexy, like Scorpion Sting, and then you have songs like Coil that start out as this kind of like slow burn, and then it just builds into this masterpiece. That is quite literally one of my favorite songs of the year, by the way, in case you couldn't tell. So Blood Moon 1 by Converge and Chelsea Wolfe, I think, is just an amazing collection of music, and everybody needs to hear it, I think, at least once. Number 2 on my top metal albums of 2021 is In the Court of the Dragon from Trivium. Trivium as a whole is a great band. They're amazing live. If they're coming to your city, don't miss them. But at least in recent years, I've always kind of found myself wanting just a little bit more out of some of their more recent albums. albums, if you know what I mean. And that's not to say that they weren't good. I did like them, but for example, I did really like What the Dead Men Say, but it just didn't go as far as I wanted it to. Like, it was just under what I was hoping for from Trivium, and hence it didn't make my album of the year list last year. But In the Court of the Dragon filled that void for me. I loved the singles that Trivium had put out for In the Court of the Dragon before the entire album was released, but I also did with What the Dead Men Say. So I really wasn't sure what to expect from this album. I expected it just to be like What the Dead Men Say, quite frankly. And on my first listen, as soon as it was over, I was like, oh my God, this very well might be my album of the year. In the Court of the Dragon is in one sense exactly what I was hoping for from Trivium and what I've been anticipating from them. But in another sense, it caught me by surprise and wasn't at all what I expected from Trivium, if that makes sense. Sometimes I think the creative efforts of bands who have more of a mainstream audience and a mainstream presence like Trivium kind of get overshadowed by that. So don't let that be a reason that you sleep on In the Court of the Dragon by Trivium. It is an amazing album. So before I reveal my #1 metal album of the year, I wanted to also mention some other great albums that are definitely in my top 10 list that I highly recommend checking out. Number 10 is the 13 Years of Nero by Exteo. Number 9 is Celestial Blues from King Woman. Number 8 is Perpetual Chaos by Nervosa. Number 7 is Deceiver by Chemist. And number 6 is Fortitude by Gojira. And my #1 metal album of the year is Strength from Unto Others. So first of all, to be honest with you, I have a really hard time even just talking about this album without that urge to listen to it. In my mind, I'm already singing the lyrics in my head and humming the riffs. I feel like Strength from Unto Others being my #1 metal album of the year might be surprising to some, especially for those of you that know me and know that typically I like my music to be brutally heavy. If it doesn't sound like the depths of hell are coming out of my speakers, it might not be my #1 choice. But in this case, it is. Strength by Unto Others is a goth metal album, and goth metal in particular isn't necessarily known for the music being super, super heavy, but this album has those moments, and that's why it stood out to me immediately. The other thing that gets me about this album every time I listen to it is Unto Others has this way of taking very dark subject matter, for example, on songs like Heroin and Hell is for Children, and combining it with that goth rock, goth metal kind of romantic sound that makes it sort of sound beautiful, and it's almost kind of like a catch-22, I guess. It's just something that kind of gets your attention a little bit easier, I think. It kind of pulls you more into the message that they're trying to convey, and I don't know how else to explain it other than the fact that I think it's something very special about Unto Others and this album, Strength. I was going to say, imagine this album being like a combination of The Cure and then name some other band who utilizes harsh vocals to kind of get my point across. But to be honest with you, I really can't think of what that other band would be that I would compare it to, because it's just so unique to Unto Others to me. The way it's done, everything about it. This is just one of those albums that when you hear it, I think you'll see why you've seen it on so many album of the year lists, including my own as my top choice, because this is an album that you just need to hear. So now that you've heard my top metal albums of 2021, I want to hear yours. Leave me a comment below with your metal album of the year, and if you like this video, then please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel, because I have even more heavy music related videos on the way. I'm having shoulder surgery this week, so I'm hoping once I recover from that, I am planning to be back on my regular once a week posting schedule, but until I know what my recovery's really going to be like once this is done. I'm not sure. So I do have more videos on the way. I'm hoping I'll be able to release it. If not, I will be back in full steam in 2022. I'll also still be pretty active on my blog, theversatilevirgo.com, sharing new things there, as well as on my Instagram. I've linked both of those in the description below, along with the best songs of 2021 list that I've mentioned and my top 5 underground metal EPs of 2021 list. So you can check that out as well and find even more cool, heavy new music to headbang to. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. I really appreciate you sticking with me this year, and I can't wait to see the cool things that we're going to get up to on this channel and over at theversatilevirgo.com in 2022. I hope you guys have a great week, a happy new year, and most importantly, stay heavy.